Yes, each time the Malach Hashem would appear, the people would immediately fall to the ground. And they would fall on their faces, and they would fear for their lives. They would say they've seen God face to face, and they're going to die. And actually, if it was just a mere created being, just an angel, the angel would have to immediately say, oh, no, 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 I'm not God.
Of course.
You don't have to fear for your lives. But he didn't correct them. What he would say is shalom. In other words, he was saying peace. He was giving them psychological wholeness because he knew that they were fearing for their lives. And so each time he would give them peace, and he would proceed to share with them what he wanted to tell them. For example, when he appeared to Manoah in Judges, that's Samson's father, before Samson was born, Manoah recognized that he was seeing God face to face. And the angel comforted him, this Malach Hashem, this unique messenger of God. And Manoah was so excited, it was such a wonderful, miraculous thing that he was seeing, that he wanted to offer a sacrifice to the Malach Hashem. Now, if this was just a mere created being, an angel, he could not accept the sacrifice. Only God can accept sacrifice. You only offer God sacrifice. And so, but the Malach Hashem accepted the sacrifice of Manoah, and as the sacrifice was burning, the flames were reaching up to the heavens, and the Malach Hashem went into the flames, and in the flames went up to heaven, and Manoah says, oh, this is Pele. In other words, this is the most wonderful, miraculous thing. And this Hebrew word Pele that he uses is only used when we're talking about God. And so time and time again, every time the Malach Hashem appears in the Hebrew Scriptures, this is a unique messenger that the people recognize as God. And yet he's appearing as a man.
So you think this is really Yeshua, the Messiah, before he came in the form of Jesus?
Yes. You know, after I had met with Rabbi Shachet, and I went home that evening and told my family, I now believe in Yeshua as the Jewish Messiah, I now decided I must read the Brit Hadashah, the New Covenant. This is what the Christians read, so for me it was a forbidden book, but now I must sit down and read it. And when I read it, and I met Yeshua in the pages of the New Covenant, it was like meeting an old friend, because I had already met him in the Hebrew Scriptures, the way that he would treat people, the things that he would say, how he would conduct himself when he would meet and talk to people. To me, I was meeting Yeshua in the Hebrew Scriptures.
Now, you make an interesting point on this new covenant. It's really a renewed covenant. Right. Explain.
The Hebrew, Brit Hadashah, does not mean something brand new that had never been known before. Brit Hadashah has the meaning a renewed covenant, a renewing. In other words, in the Hebrew Scriptures, God had his work to do with the Israeli people, the Israelites, the Hebrew people, and now, which was always his intent, he was going to open it up to the whole world. So he renewed his original covenant in the Hebrew Scriptures, and he was now giving it to all the peoples of the world.
I believe there is only one Judaism. It's not the variety the rabbis have since come up with, called rabbinical Judaism, and it's not even what Christianity has come up with as something the opposite of Judaism, but it's a renewed covenant where the Spirit of God takes the Torah and makes it l'chaim, life. But when you started reading some of these prophecies, listen, she found in Isaiah, the 53rd chapter, written almost 1,000 years before Yeshua, that's Hebrew for Jesus, came to earth, such a description. There was no way you could deny that it was taught. How could it be talking about Jesus, written almost 800 years before he even came to earth? How could it?
Well, the rabbis, the modern rabbis, say that it's talking about Israel, or the people of Israel. The ancient rabbis always recognized it as speaking of King Messiah, and that's the term they use.
That was before there was prejudice involved. We'll be right back. I'm expecting some miracles. Don't go away.
We'll be right back to It's supernatural.
Hello, Sid Roth back here with Sharon Allen. Sharon is an Orthodox Jewish woman that thinks for herself. As a result, she studied the Tanakh. She studied the Jewish scriptures, the Jewish commentaries, the Talmud, the Encyclopedia Judaica. She went to rabbis. Their profession is to prove Jesus is not the Messiah, but she found so much evidence. But I was asking you about a prophecy you read in our own Tanakh, Isaiah the 53rd chapter, that the ancient rabbis all were in agreement. This is speaking of King Messiah. Tell me about this Isaiah 53. Well, you talked about two appearances. The ancient rabbis said.
The ancient rabbis actually recognized that there would be they recognized two separate identities of the Messiah, two pictures of the Messiah that they even had names for. Moshiach ben Yosef, Messiah, son of Joseph, who would come as the suffering servant, and Moshiach ben David, a Messiah, son of David, who would come as the conquering hero king.
Actually, back then, that was a pretty good spin of two different Messiahs, but today, looking back at these pictures, it could just as easily have been one Messiah,
yes.
two appearances.
Yes.
Read. I want you to think for yourself. Sharon, read that.
Who has believed our message? And to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For he grew up before him like a tender shoot, and like a root out of parched ground. He has no stately form or majesty that we should look upon him, nor appearance that we should be attracted to him. He was despised and forsaken of men, a man of sorrows, and acquainted with grief, and like one from whom men hide their face. He was despised, and we did not esteem him. Surely our griefs he himself bore, and our sorrows he carried. Yet we ourselves esteemed him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was pierced through for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The chastening for our well-being fell upon him, and by his scourging we are healed. All of us, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us has turned to his own way, but the Lord has caused the iniquity of us all to fall on him. He was oppressed, and he was afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. Like a lamb that is led to slaughter, and like a sheep that is silent before its shearers, so he did not open his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. And as for his generation, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living for the transgression of my people?
Sharon, I want her to stop right now. You can read this yourself. I read this to my Orthodox Jewish father, who the one thing he did not want to admit is Jesus was the Messiah, or that man, as he would refer to him. But when I read that, he said, stop reading from that Goyish Christian Bible. And I showed him I was reading from the Tanakh, the Jewish scriptures that our Orthodox rabbi had inscribed to me. It was good enough for me, my father, who did not want to believe it was Jesus. It's good enough for you. Sharon, when you read this, what happened inside of you?
I was shocked. I was amazed. I knew immediately this is what the Gentile people say about their Messiah. But once again, Sid, for me, there was no way that I could believe in that man. But I must say, when I read these scriptures, I was amazed because absolutely it did sound like the story, the whole message of Yeshua, why he came, why he suffered, and how God raised him on the third day.
Now let me ask you this. In Jeremiah,